Should I shut the door for silence reasons?
Yeah,
or?
we can, yeah. All right, I think we are live. Yeah, beautiful. Okay, look at that. That's us. Look at.
Amazing. Hello.
Yeah, amazing. Hello, everyone. All right, to everybody that's listening in live as well. All right, thanks everybody for coming out tonight here to our very first BTC discussions at the new D-Control. So I see we have new, I guess you all haven't really been to this space yet. You haven't been yet. You've been a couple times. This is your first time here. Did you come to the basement before? You haven't been to our old location? Oh, wow. Okay. Well, we just moved in here recently and are continuing to move things. We just finished a huge hall of desks and chairs and monitors, various things. So we're slowly getting things set up. We'll take you for a tour afterwards, and maybe we'll get you sold on the space and interested in hanging out with a bunch of other like-minded individuals.
She's visiting from out of town, Tango.
You're visiting from out of town. Great. All right. Well, we'll get you figured out.
Maybe you'll find a reason to move here.
Yeah. There you go. Anyhow, basically we are going to start doing these once a month. We're going to have a Bitcoin talk and talking more about whatever's happening, whatever's the latest thing. There seems to be lots nowadays. There seems to be a ton because we've always got, between all the different exploits and the shenanigans happening, there's a lot going on. But we wanted to get first and foremost into the BIP-110. That was the latest fork that happened as of how many days ago now?
Maybe 4 or 5?
4 or 5 days ago. Yeah. So that's been a very contentious thing across the ecosystem. And I think it would be great if you could kind of take us through a little bit of this journey of what happened.
How we got to today.
About how we got to today. So perhaps a good place for us to start is to say, first, like what was I guess the current concern with Bitcoin, with where Bitcoin Core was kind of headed, and what sort of things were starting to raise some flags, and what kind of raised the alarms in order to say, hey, we need to do something, or how did that all kind of come to fruition?
Yeah, I think you have to go back a long ways, right? Back into like the early days of Bitcoin. And this has been an ongoing discussion of what exactly is it for? What is it designed for? What are we using it for? Do we care what it was designed for, right? Like, do we have to honor what Satoshi intended? He didn't communicate overly well, I would say, like exactly what it was used for. I would say he was an entrepreneur who was like pitching a startup, and he told people what they wanted to hear. So sometimes he says like small block things, we got to keep the data constrained. I mean, he's the one who put the block size in, the 1 megabyte block limit. But then other times he talks about like someday you'll need a data center to run a node, right? And these things are kind of like, they don't really add up together. But the way I personally view that is like, you make an invention, you don't really know if it's going to be successful or not. And it's like the Steve Jobs reality distortion field, right? Like you tell this person what they want to hear, you tell that person what they want to hear, right? Okay, so anyway, that was 15 years ago that he left. And very early on in Bitcoin, like when I first started paying attention to Bitcoin in about 2013, it was already coming up about storing data on Bitcoin, right? Is it in Bitcoin just for sending money transactions, or is it for building other applications? So famously, and I mean, you might know a little bit more about this, but that's one of the reasons why Vitalik left, because he wanted to build more complicated applications on top of Bitcoin, and he got the impression that that wasn't going to happen. I would say those people kind of left to Ethereum around that time. So you get your ICOs, you get your meme coins, you get your NFTs and this art stuff.
This is classic Bitcoin lore.
I know, but it's a complicated
lore.
History.
It's a complicated history, but it's join us. Just join us.
So it seems like for a long time, like Bitcoin was left to be just money, and that was like the dominant narrative, and like the Ethereum smart contract people were kind of over here, and Bitcoin was just money. And then about 4 years ago, Casey Rodimer invented something called ordinals, which is a meta protocol, which means like a protocol on top of a protocol. And what he kind of figured out or paved the way was, even the way Bitcoin currently is, with no modifications, he can make NFTs, he can make meme coins, and that kicked off just a lot of culture war, I would say, to borrow a term from America, where all of a sudden those people came back to Bitcoin, right? And it's a totally different culture. It's like oil and vinegar, right? And the animosity built and built and built and built. And then Bitcoin Core 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, made a decision to change a policy setting that was interpreted as giving up the war against the NFTs and the meme coins.
So I think that's maybe a good point for us to touch on there. And I think that what you're referring to was like the op return, right? The op return limit, that is some place where you can store arbitrary data in a Bitcoin transaction, and it was limited to 83 bytes, correct? And that was a number, I think it used to be 40 at one point, and then someone...
Yeah, they fought about this back in 2013, 2014. So originally, op return was not for storing data, but Satoshi, while he was still... Oh, I might want to fact check that. Check.
Jamie, pull that up.
Was it after Satoshi? I think it was.
After, seems. Okay.
But I don't even think it was meant for that at the beginning, because it's not called like op memo. It's called op return. Like it was just a programming instruction to return.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, you've got, if you don't limit it, then it turns into arbitrary data. Where if it's limited, you can say, all right, well, this could be this.
But it was always meant for arbitrary data, just a tiny chunk of it.
Exactly. Yeah, but that now. Yeah. That turns into being something more constructive, right? Saying, okay, well, we can use this data for this stuff, which might be very little. I shouldn't even say constructive. It might be like, this is a very, very, very small view.
It was meant to be big enough to store like a hash. Yeah. So, but that point, it's like they understood that it would be used to build other protocols, right? Like they specifically made it long enough to store like a hash of something. There's also like the policy versus consensus, which is consensus is like the law of Bitcoin. You can't violate consensus, or you're not on the network anymore. But the policy is an individual node runner's choice. And so you could always have up to 1 megabyte op return. It's just nobody did it, and you would need a miner to mine it directly for you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point to point out between policy and consensus, because it's not like Bitcoin got changed. It was just these parameters, these filters, or it's not even called, I guess it's filters, I suppose, is the way to look at this too, right? We were talking about, filter wars and everything too. But that stuff was always, you could always bypass it. They were just like, these were policies that we said, this is like how if you're going to be running Bitcoin Core, here's how we're going to run it so that when you do, when transactions go to the blockchain, here's how we want to do this so that they are valid, they're efficient, and they work, right? However, if you were an advanced user, you could say, you know what, some of these other policies, I can work around them, ship them directly to a miner, and they will do it for me. And now this is where you get into some of this larger stuff, and particularly, even like ordinals and some larger, very large data ordinals as well.
But I think like the reason why I started with kind of the history is I don't really think it's about the op return variable size. It's really about the what is Bitcoin for, right? And this was like the straw that broke the camel's back, where the people who, they're kind of being called the monetary maxis is the new term, where the monetary maxis finally realized like, oh, they're gonna go for this. Right, there's going to be more meta protocols, and they're going to keep coming. And there's going to be companies like Citrea that raise like X millions of dollars to build a protocol on top of Bitcoin. And that was kind of the breaking point, where I guess that brings us to today, the BIP-110.
Yeah, I guess that kind of does, because then there was a. Oh. Yeah.
I know, but you're getting into the weeds there, right? And
yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's like Bitcoin Core's position was that like it's better for people to put the data into op return than it is to put it in normal transaction signatures. Yeah.
Take this mic, actually.
Yeah.
That's like misusing the fields and they're invalid. But I don't know. There's some argument about like, do you want the average person, the average user or business to be able to like run the node and not have exorbitant cost and not have that inflate over time. And that I feel like is what that idea of like other people are forcing me to store data on it. I feel like is what led to the movement that, like they say,
I think it's more fundamental than that. I think it's like a lot of people forget that it is like an anachronistic system.
Yeah.
And like you just used it like the word force, right? There's no forcing in Bitcoin.
No, and one thing I want to point out too about...
I'm making the argument that I heard from...
Right. So what I would like to point out as well, if you're thinking this is bloating my node, node
bloating the node,
is too bloated with whatever it is. These are all transactions that are paying miners fees. If you want to put
bloated
your
with
JPEG
wizards.
On it, bloated with wizards. Now, at the end of the day, if you're thinking, oh, my hardware isn't going to be able to run this anymore, if you are not thinking about full blocks for your node, for the entirety of your plan to use Bitcoin, you're not bullish enough. That's how my stance is. You should be thinking full blocks. If every 10 minutes I need to account for 4 megabytes, because that in a Bitcoin bullish world, we are so full. All of those blocks are full with everything. It's demand. There's all kind it's 4 megabytes are getting filled up.
Well,
all the time.
clearly when they set that limit, they assumed that they could always be full.
Yeah.
Obviously,
right?
You don't set the limit to 4.
The ordinal people were
they
able
would
to
have set
sneak
the
in.
limit to 1 if they didn't want it to be 4.
Would've
And
set
by
it to what,
they, I
sorry?
mean we.
Set it to which?
I just mean, like, I'm backing up your point. But really, I think, and this is just my opinion here, this is all just a distraction. The real issue is what is Bitcoin for, right? And it's not really about the UTXO set or like the hard drive. I don't believe any of that is accurate. I believe that's all like, I don't know what the term is, almost like bike shedding or like reverse cargo culting. I don't know what the term is.
I think
we need a term for
concern
it.
trolling.
But I don't think the people who are doing it know they're doing it.
They're just
Like
repeating
you're not concerned trolling, right? Like
no. I'm repeating the argument that I heard that I was like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
you could be, concerned with that. I mean, obviously, I don't care. I like ordinals.
Right, and I guess like exactly anyone who likes ordinals is not worried about their node cost.
I like ordinals,
right?
and I like BIP-110 actually.
But everyone who hates ordinals is worried about their node cost. Like that's to me what illustrates that it's not really about the node cost, right? When it's like if 100% of people who are okay with ordinals aren't worried, and 100% of people who don't like ordinals are worried, I don't believe that you're really worried about, you just don't like the ordinals.
Yeah.
How many ordinals people are running nodes though?
Probably
I'm leaving
more
out,
than
I'm leaving out a
than
part of the
not.
argument, though. I was building the
yeah.
steps to it, and I'm leaving out a part of the argument to give you the room to like continue.
You're giving us rope
it.
to hang ourselves?
No. I'm just saying, I don't want to like spoil it because
Yeah.
that thread is related to what forms BIP-110, which I think Tangle wants to talk about next.
Yeah, I guess we can. Maybe one final piece. I guess talking about the op return. There was something I was going to talk about there with like the op return and how that was affected, and then why they originally thought, well, hey, we're going to just put no cap on it instead of saying, oh, well, you know, why don't we just double it or triple it? And the point was, from what I recall, and perhaps you can lean into this more, was to the effect of minor centralization, right? And maybe, I don't know, maybe that's just one final part that we get into before 110.
Well, basically, like 3 or 4 years ago, Peter Todd came out with something called Libra Relay, which is a special software to help you bypass the restrictive filter policies. So instead of having to directly contact a miner and like pay extra, you could just use Libra Relay. And that was a large part of Core's argument, was that people are going to use these big op returns, whether we change or not, and it's better if we make it the default setting. And I think even I personally, when I first started hearing that, I actually thought it was bullshit too. Like, it's so bullshitty that you have to put a lot of work in to like get what they were getting at. I believe I don't know how to describe that better, but it's like, the first time you hear it, it sounds like they're contorting and trying to convince you, and it just sounds like your bullshit alarms are going off. So I don't blame the people whose bullshit alarms went off, because even me personally, I kind of felt the same. But last summer, there was something that happened called subsat summer. So normally the default, oh yeah, you haven't heard about this? Well, you're a year late. But
I was asleep.
It's actually still subsat summer this summer. Woo. So normally it's 1 Satoshi is the minimum fee rate.
Yeah.
Bitcoin Core will not forward a transaction that has a lower fee than 1 sat of eByte, right? But last summer, the mempool dried up. And all of a sudden, all these tiny little subsat transactions started getting mined, right? And the reason they were able to do that is because they were using Libra Relay, and they were just almost every single miner. I think it was like 80% of the miners were mining these things, right? And then in September, Bitcoin Core changed their default policy to respect that. So they were late. So it's a demonstratable.
To respect it, like to relax the.
Yeah. They reacted to the market. Like the market decided we don't care about your policy. Right? Because the market doesn't have to care about their policy, right?
No.
And Bitcoin Core was late. Not that it really mattered, but it was a perfect example of what they were trying to do with the op return, where they realized, this is their version of the story, and I mostly believe it, is Citrea, which is a company that was making an EVM, Ethereum on Bitcoin. So you can imagine how the alarm bells went off, right? And that's why I started with like the war between Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? Where you imagine like you're already pissed off about the ordinals and the meme coins, and then you find out that someone's making an EVM, Ethereum virtual machine compatible layer on top of Bitcoin, and they're going to use the op return, and Bitcoin Core changed their policy to accommodate it. Well, they went nuts.
And miners don't care, and they're happy to mine those.
Yeah. So basically, the last year and a half has been people coming to terms with that or not coming to terms with that. But largely, it's like, it's an anachronistic system. Like, no one has to ask anyone for permission. As the BIP-110ers found out this week, you don't have to ask for permission to fork. You can fork anytime you want, right? If the market doesn't come with you, you got your answer. But there's no boss. There's no like CEO. Like Bitcoin Core is not the CEO of Bitcoin, and we can get into that.
Well, I think this is a good time now, if we've kind of explained some of the changes, why those changes were thought to be okay, and or we're
Which
past this.
changes.
Like with Bitcoin Core, right? With like removing.
But this was really the only change.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like removing the op return limit, and I feel like once that really brought things really came to head at that point.
And especially because it was building.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and then it's like EVM. It's just like it was like maximum.
Yeah.
Like troll, almost maximum troll. You would almost say.
So at this point, there was a group or a faction, or I don't know how we want to call it, that
the monetary maxis.
Monetary maxis, there it is. Came up with a solution for BIP-110. I don't know if there was other BIPs to put.
I think there were a couple that led up to it.
That kind of led up to this. I'll let you take it away on that, but maybe just talk us through how that kind of came to light, what it was, and what it was proposed to do.
Well, I guess we back up with Knots, right? So there's an alternative Bitcoin client called Knots, which is basically just Bitcoin Core with some different settings. And it started to be adopted pretty heavily like a year and a half ago when this op return thing happened. And they got up to like, I don't know, 20, 25% of the node count. But that didn't work because it doesn't matter if 25% of the nodes aren't relaying these transactions. If 75% of them, heck, if even like 2% of them are, they're still going to get through, right? Like basically, the miners are the service provider, and you as the person broadcasting the transaction, or the customer, and it's pretty hard outside of an authoritarian country to get between a customer and a provider. Right? So if I want to do business and you want to do business, the fact that she doesn't want us to do business, well, who cares, right? So that didn't work. The relay policy thing didn't work. So they had to escalate to, no, we have to actually change the rules of Bitcoin, right? But in order to do that, you need an overwhelming amount of support. And for various reasons, they were never able to get that much support.
Well, okay, first we talk about Knots, and that was coming. So now maybe let's just discuss like what BIP-110 is and what it was doing, or what it was all about.
It was going to disable a bunch of opcodes or limit them. So Bitcoin script is like a very basic programming language, and you have like command and then the data. So you can imagine like, let's just imagine like add and subtract. Right? Like let's pretend we only have two opcodes, add and subtract. And then you have like your numbers like 5 and 10, and then you have the word add, right? And you put 5, 10, add, you get 15, right? It's a very basic programming language. And they wanted to remove parts or restrict parts of the programming language, which the spammers, the Tabru wizards are using, right? So they wanted to target almost like, I'm going to adopt there, like if the patient had cancer, right? And we're going to go in there and we're going to cut out where the cancer is, right? Now, I think one of the fatal flaws of that theory was they'll just move the data somewhere else. Like you're going to be playing whack-a-mole, right? And that was one of the major counter arguments was, okay, you can restrict those fields, but you're going to make it like literally 2% more expensive. And they can just shift it somewhere else. And you're right, it'll be slightly more expensive, but literally like 2% more expensive.
When you say shift it somewhere else, what do you mean by shifting it somewhere else?
Just embed it in the transaction in a different way. Like make it look more just like a normal Bitcoin transaction, which is less efficient for the spammer, but not enough. Like it's not like it would be 10x the cost, right? It would be like a minor, because it's very difficult, even if you wanted to, it's almost impossible to prevent people from using Bitcoin in ways you don't want to use them. And that was kind of like the main anti-BIP-110 argument was like, this isn't going to work, right? And they knew it wasn't going to work because in their own BIP, it said, we know that consensus is not the place to fix this, that policy is. Even though we just spent a year realizing that policy is going to work. So the whole thing was kind of schizophrenic right from the beginning. And the reason, again, in my opinion, why that was is really the goal was to fire Bitcoin Core. but you can't fire a group of developers that you aren't paying, right? And you can't make other people not use their software. Again, like it's an anachronistic system, right? Like you would need like an authoritarian, like knock on the door, what kind of node do you have in there? So, yeah. Oh, it's our favorite no coiner.
Yeah, our favorite, yeah, $20 coiner. All right. But yes.
Yeah. So I feel, yeah, what I was kind of saying, like, I feel they were really trying to they were trying to do something that couldn't be done using a technique that couldn't work. And I don't know why they didn't know that. Because...
Yeah, I thought it was more that they knew that, but it was more about
sending a message.
Sending a message and saying, hey, we should
right.
bring this up, and maybe enough people see it and they realize what our efforts are for here.
You're right. And I think what they did say, and it does make a certain amount of sense, is if you could, like, so Citrea, right? If BIP-110 had have been adopted, Citrea would have had to change their protocol. Now, they could have, but they'd have to change it. And you can imagine if, like, 6 months later, they had to change it again, and then, like, after a while, they might be like, this is just, like, too much work. Like, okay, we get the hint. You don't want it. So you're right. That is what they were trying to do. The problem is like, as all investors should know, investors don't like unpredictable changing. Like, part of the promise of Bitcoin is it's stable and it's reliable, and like you can go to jail for a decade and come out and still move your coins, right?
Unless if it's on a cold card.
Right. So that's why, to me, it was like you're trying to do something that can't really be done. And if you were to, even if the community was supporting you, like it's just hopeless. Which I think is why it didn't activate, right? Like the major stakeholders of the system.
Right, and so let's talk about that. Let's talk about what it looked like leading up to activation, and because now you have like node signaling, you have to have miner signaling, all these sorts of things. There was obviously a lot of discussion around.
Oh yeah.
This is what we wanted, or what what 110 wanted to be, how it was going to offer, what it was going to provide, and then maybe some around nodes and miners too would be
exactly. That's like another good thread. So I think during the block size war, right, in 2017, the Bitcoin small block position was you have to be able to run a node, right? This is a key requirement. We have to keep the node costs reasonable. This was like the ideology that we all adopted, right? That's why we didn't adopt big blocks, right? So it was beaten into the culture of like, you run a node and you vote with your node and like you speak up with your node, right? So it's like, no. But the unfortunate reality is like, if your node's just sitting on a shelf, not doing anything, it has precisely zero influence on the network. And that's politically difficult to tell people because they've invested not only their money, but their heart into that node. It's like there was a guy last summer at Learning Bitcoin, and we were kind of talking about this, and he said, you can't tell me what to do with my node. And I said, you're right, but you can't tell anyone else to value what you're doing with your node, right? And that's what the BIP-110 people found out this week. Like, you're right, no one can tell you what code to run, but you also can't tell anyone else to value it. And I think clearly, like, Bitcoin is unorthodox and confusing, and like it's the first of like the new, it's like a governance system of sorts, right? And it's very confusing. It's emergent. Like, we don't really know, right? This was like the first contentious fork that Bitcoin's ever gone through, right? Like the block size war was a bit different because they left. Like, Bitcoin Cash left like 2 weeks before SegWit. So it was contentious. You're right. It was more contentious. But this was the first time we actually like went into a fork where we have like an abandoned chain. But I think it's a very difficult situation because people care about Bitcoin so much. Like, they really are. There's a lot of emotional connection. It's very technically difficult. There's a lot of disinformation and misinformation, both intentional and unintentional. So it's like a powder keg of like, right? There's no one in charge. It's like literally anarchy. And what do you expect with anarchy, right?
Well, we know what it's like around this place,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So with the node signaling, miners signaling, maybe just kind of thread on that before you move into like what then what happened, I guess, is maybe a good place to go.
Yeah, so I think going into it, there was probably like 15%, I'll say, of the network nodes signaling for BIP-110, approximately. Like you get different sources numbers from different people, which is a sizable amount of people. I mean, there's a company called Start9 which sells like the node in a box things, and they said they sold like $1 million worth or something. Like there's thousands of these things out there, right? But the miners, there was no miner support.
No miner support, and
because the miners knew it wasn't going to happen.
No, I think there was miner support, right? We were starting to see. I think Ocean was mining.
Ocean was allowing their hashers to signal.
Yeah. So I thought there was like
but it was like 2.5%.
Sure, in the final, yeah.
Which is to me is like a rounding error, right? Like.
Sure. Okay.
I would call 2.5% no.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean. You know,
I hear you.
Like if the Green Party gets 2.5% of the vote, like we don't talk about the Green Party very much, right? Like,
I hear you.
It's a no.
Anyway, I just wanted to point out, like,
Ocean, it wasn't zero.
Wasn't zero. Ocean was supporting it. It was something that they were.
And there was a Roughnecks.
Yes,
which I suspect has a Canadian connection. I don't know. It's a very Canadian kind of term, isn't it?
Or Texas, you know, right? You're thinking Alberta.
I think it's Alberta, yeah.
You know, or it could be Texas. Could be Texans doing it too, right? That's a big oil country. Don't forget about them. So now again with the nodes too, when we were saying like Start9 node in a box, all those sorts of things that were coming out and them selling this. Now, are those economic nodes as well? And maybe just talk a little bit about like just running your own node for, personal node and then economic nodes. Because I feel like those are kind of two distinctions as well to be getting to really bring it in there as well.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan personally of the economic node term, but what the concept,
go on. Why not? Or
what the concept is getting at is that like really the way you vote, and this is very controversial, I would say, the way you vote in Bitcoin is by having Bitcoin, right? So if you own 10 Bitcoin, and in the event of a fork, you're going to dump those 10 Bitcoin. Well, your node is an economic node, right? Like you have 10 Bitcoin worth of weight in the system. But there's no way to know that ahead of time, right? Like until that actually happens, you could have your node on a shelf being a complete non-economic node for years, and then you dump all your Bitcoin. Well, you just became one for that minute. So really what it means is like how much coin do you control? Or if you're a retailer, how much coin are you like accepting on a daily basis? You could imagine like let's imagine that El Salvador had it worked out, and McDonald's and Starbucks and Pizza Hut all had their own node, right? And if it was like McDonald's El Salvador was like, we sell $5 million a year of hamburgers and we're going with BIP-110, then that would be like an economic, And the reason why I think that's so controversial, again, is our war against Ethereum, where it's your proof of stake, we're proof of work, right? So how can it matter how much Bitcoin I own? That sounds awfully like proof of stake. And it's like...
Good point. Point.
Well, it's like, yeah, I mean, how could you have an economic system where the person who has more invested in the system has less of a vote than the person who owns $20 worth? Like, how would that ever work? Like, who would want to join such a system?
Is how much is when you vote, when you go to the election box, and you're, when you're going to go vote here for, the next prime minister or the next premier, is your vote worth more than mine?
No, you're right.
So, I mean, there's just something to think about there too, right? But again, that's a very different thing because we're identifying
uniqueness. We have
uniqueness.
a government,
We have uniqueness of humans, whereas, and it's a little more complicated.
We have someone in charge. in a government to say
Sure,
you each
sure.
get a vote.
Right, but
in
regardless-
like a crypto economic anarchistic system.
Sure, there's that. Yeah, there's that angle too. I was kind of alluding more towards, you know, humans aren't as scalable as you would like to, as we'd like to. It takes 9 months to get a new human to come out, and then 18 years later they can now vote, right? So it's a long con. It's a long con if you're trying to, like, you know,
Stuff the ballot.
yeah,
or
to
whatever,
try and
yeah.
stuff the ballot, right?
Yeah.
So I think slight difference there.
But it's
versus
so
just-
confusing. Like that's why it's so confusing because we use these like metaphors or from the traditional world, and none of them really map perfectly. Like we've created something new, and it's only 16 years old. Like imagine if democracy was only 16 years old, and we were only going into like our 4th ever election, right? People would be saying all sorts of like we'd have no one would know what was going on to some extent.
Correct, and they probably didn't back then
Yeah.
either. So here we are, though. Here we are today. So
what I think, like what you're getting at is like leading into the fork, right? Like there was this proponents of the fork that were somehow denying that there was no support, right? Because you could see like, okay, you have 15% of the nodes. Well, that's not a majority. You have 2% of the hash. That's not a majority. The prediction market has no liquidity.
yeah, not a whole lot, but I mean, it was still interesting to see the amount of volume that was going on through it, which was
Like there were spikes.
yeah, there were spikes. I mean, I don't know that it really ever got above 20% support for yes.
But it was tiny, right?
It is small in comparison, and yeah.
Comparison to $1 trillion asset.
Well, sure, but
Like,
I
it
mean,
was
you could compare it to a lot of the prediction markets out there. There's not a lot of prediction markets that are quite liquid and active,
But the reason I bring it up is like, clearly nobody thought they needed to hedge, right?
not enough.
Not
anyways.
enough.
Yeah,
There
I
wasn't a
mean,
lot of money that felt they needed to hedge, which to me feels like either it was just completely unimportant, that nobody had anything to lose. But what I was saying is like all the metrics were not good, right? And the proponents were saying like, everyone's going to join at the last minute. You know, there's going to be this rush of support at the last minute. And it's like, you're bluffing, right? Like you're lying.
Yeah.
And the way I know you, the reason we know you were lying is when the fork actually happened, after half an hour, they ended the stream and they looked like they were going to cry, right? So they already knew it wasn't going to activate. It's sort of like, back to the Canada example, like when you have like 5 political parties, and they're all up there and be like, when I'm elected prime minister, I will. And it's like, dude, you have 2%. And I know you have to say that because you can't run for prime minister and say like, look, I know I'm not going to be prime minister. So you have to pretend. So like I get the strategy of like, you have to believe you're going to win and you have to tell people you're going to win. I just thought about it like a month ago, they should have said like, okay, it's not going to happen. Like, I don't think it should have gone into the action. Like, I don't understand what was gained by, it's sort of, you know, that episode of Seinfeld where George says he owns a house on Long Island. Okay, I'm a boomer.
Never seen that one.
Okay,
Okay. All right,
so
go
he's a
on.
pathological liar, this George guy. That was a Freudian slip there.
Wait, George Costanza?
Yeah.
He was a pathological liar?
Yeah.
Oh.
So he told his
He lied to me.
in-laws, this will be a short diversion, I swear.
Darn, I
He
can't believe he
told
lied
his
to me.
in-laws that he owned a cottage at the end of Long Island. And the whole way they're driving there, and he doesn't want to admit that he doesn't own the damn cottage. So they keep going, they keep going, they keep going. And then finally they're at like the end of the road. It's like, all right, you got me, there's no cottage. Right?
Yeah.
And like, that's what I felt. It was like, okay, guys, like a couple weeks ago, it would have been the honorable thing in my mind to be like, there's no cottage.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's just, you know,
Yeah.
it's
okay.
gone from bad to worse, right?
Yeah, I'm just curious now okay, so let's talk about the fork. Let's say, okay, this took place at whichever, I can't remember the block height exactly. I can't remember the number of when that took place.
I forget too.
Yeah. So this is at this point is where miners start signaling is what's really happening here. So like just walk us through what would have changes or what was to be expected at this certain block height.
Yeah, so it was like 4 or 5 days ago, and that was the beginning of the mandatory signaling period where miners were required to signal in their blocks saying they supported BIP-110, Now, they actually weren't required to filter any transactions. The consensus rules didn't change at that. That was going to be like 2 weeks from now. But as soon as that happened, the NOTS nodes or the BIP-110 nodes, they would never consider a block valid if it didn't have that bit flipped. And it actually was really kind of crazy that there were 2 blocks within 2 hours. So they did get 2 blocks, which I would assume they got 1, but the 2 was like, it was almost like a World Cup final, you know, and it was like Brazil versus Canada, right? And like somehow Brazil got to the shootout. Oh, sorry, Canada, you know, like that was the analogy I was making. Really good team, really bad team. So it was exciting. It's just they didn't, you know, the main chain continued on. They didn't get, none of the major mining pools or small mining pools mined any blocks. Only the Rough Riders or the Roughnecks.
Roughnecks, yeah.
They're the only ones who mined 2 blocks, and now they won't get paid for those blocks because their chain is kind of abandoned at the moment, right? So they've earned like 6 Bitcoin in block rewards, but only on their chain.
Right. So on that chain now, so they're pointing all of their hash power to that new chain, which is now forked off of the main chain of BTC. This is now another fork, and they are mining that directly. It's not like they're doing a combo mining or anything. It's not like a merge mine. It's just they are now putting all their hash power towards this so time, energy, power, money.
But I think they've stopped already because they can't. It's just too expensive.
Right. So,
but they did keep it up for like 4 days. Like
so in that 4 days, sorry, where's grab? Take my. Sorry, you've got that.
The fork of blockchain.
The which? Sorry, that
growing in hash rate.
It's the hash rate is growing.
Yes.
For the BIP-110.
We've mined 4 blocks.
4 blocks have been mined?
Yeah.
Okay. In total, 4 blocks over 4 days, 5 days.
Yeah.
Okay. So at this point, and I mean, maybe just like to point out with the math as well, though, with 4 blocks in this amount of time period, what is that signaling? How long is the signaling window? Is 2 weeks? You have to, and there has to be X amount of blocks.
I mean, at this rate, they won't get to the signaling for like a year.
Right.
And that would require like, I don't know, $20 million of hash.
20 million?
I just threw that number out of nowhere, but like a year's worth of hash at the difficulty of the real Bitcoin chain. I mean, it's just mathematically impossible, right? Like, it's not. All right. So I mean, maybe if Elon Musk wants to spend $1 billion mining a dead chain, he could, but like, I don't think that's
right. So right now it's taking 4 blocks have been mined, and let's just take it back for somebody who's like, well, wait a second. I thought Bitcoin every 10 minutes there's a block gets mined. So why is there only 4 blocks in 4 days? What's going on there? Just maybe explain that process. Why this is becoming a not the longest chain anymore, right?
Yeah, it's because there's a difficulty level set every 2 weeks, and you have to honor that difficulty level unless you want a hard fork. If you want a hard fork, which they haven't done yet, you can change that. You can reset the difficulty level. But currently, they're having to mine at the same difficulty level as like a week ago, right?
So you have
BTC, like 2% of the hash versus 98% of the hash.
It takes a longer time to process to actually find the block and then process.
And the difficulty level is supposed to adjust every 2 weeks, right? But that's based on the number of blocks. It's not 2 weeks on the calendar. It's 2 weeks worth of blocks. And that's why when I said like it would take them a year to mine that many blocks to get to the first difficulty adjustment. And even then, there's like a maximum limit of how much you can step down per adjustment. So it's not like they would be fine then. It was just then it would only take them like 6 months instead of a year. But what's happening in the like certain leaders of the BIP-110 are planning a hard fork now. So they'll be able to reset the difficulty adjustment, and they're going to pick a new, they've already picked a new hashing algorithm.
Right, and that was randomly selected through
Somehow.
testnet 4.
I don't even know why it was random. Like, I don't understand
Testnet
the
4,
theatrics.
randomly selected. We didn't choose it, but it could be determined. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, there's another Bitcoin. I think that people are dropping off quite quickly. There's a lot of people who were supporting BIP-110 and who are not willing to support the hard fork. So you just took a community that was like 15% of the nodes, and now maybe you're going to lose 3/4 of them. Now you're down to like 5%. I mean, no one can stop you. Like, again, like it's an anachronistic system. Like, you know, BSV still exists. Like, and it probably will exist a decade from now. It's just not a very exciting place to be. So you have to make that decision, right? Like, do you want to compromise and sit at the table with everyone else? Or do you want to take your ball and go home and sit at the kids' table? Like, I don't know how else to say it, right? Like, and this is it. Like, you don't, I don't know. Any more questions?
Yeah. So we've gone through kind of how we got there, how we got here into this current fork, what happened, how it took place, what is currently happening. And so we're at 4 blocks, and that's it? 5? Not 5? 4? Just 4? Good job checking right now. Yeah, it still looks like 4 right now. So 4 blocks have been mined because the difficulty is too high. And so it's really challenging to me. You couldn't even do a transaction on there because you'd be waiting a day for a transaction. Mm-hmm. And there's no way to acquire it. There's no exchanges are supporting it, from what I understand. To even get one, you'd have to call the Roughnecks, right?
You'd have to do like an OTC.
OTC with the Roughnecks.
Yeah.
Let's go. I wonder how much they're charging.
I'm sure they'll take any money they can get right now.
Actually, I would, you know what? Maybe that's something we could
Those
look
are going
at.
to be rare sats.
That's actually kind of fascinating to think about it. Like, hey, but what happens if they stop mining it? Then the chain dies.
Yeah.
And then that's...
Which is eventually going to, like, I don't understand how much longer people, like, it's like a protest vote.
Kind of, yeah.
Like, it's like lighting money on fire to prove a point, which is you can do, again.
Should we try and get one of the coins?
To mine it?
Just get one. I just want one.
Well, we have them. I
mean,
no. You have split.
Oh, right. Yeah.
We all get it free.
We get the,
Yeah.
That's right. We all have them. That's right.
But you have to wait for a block to like move them.
To split them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, I don't care as much anymore. Anyway. All right.
Do you think we should get into the alternative nodes real quickly? Do we have time for that?
I mean, I guess. Yeah, we can talk about alternative nodes real quick for Fiverr. Or is it going to take more than that?
It doesn't have to.
Yeah, so tell us about alternative nodes.
So,
what do you got going on?
99% of the Bitcoin network is Bitcoin Core and or NOTs. And NOTs is basically just Bitcoin Core. But there are 2 other implementations that have been around for a while. One of them is called BTCD. And as far as I know, it's a full implementation. It should be able to do every single thing Core does. It's slower than Core.
Why is it slower?
The programming language. It's Go. It's in Go, not C++. And also, I just think that they haven't had enough time to optimize it. But it is functional. And there's also another one called LibBitcoin, which has also been around for a long, long time, but it's never been complete. And they're gearing up for a release.
Ooh.
Yes. And the main selling feature of LibBitcoin is its ultra-fast syncing of the node.
I remember seeing some benchmarks
like
they're talking
it's
about.
down to 58 minutes.
8 minutes, so under an hour to sync the entire blockchain. So if you're going to spin up a new node, and if I wanted to run LibBitcoin, which is running very similar, just another client, and somehow it's able to do it in less than an hour instead of 4 days?
I don't think it's 4 days. I think
2
it's
days.
more like, on really good hardware, I think it's more like 8 hours you can do Bitcoin Core now.
All right.
They've also optimized this same thing. Partially, I would say largely because of LibBitcoin, right? So again, like free market, you need competition. And this was one of the big complaints against Bitcoin Core is they have no competition.
Yeah.
They're, you know.
Well, and this was something I looked at as I started playing more into the Ethereum world, where seeing like client diversity was taken serious. Like it was a big deal when one of the clients got over 30%. Right? Oh, geez, this isn't good. Hey, da 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 da. So it was always this balance of like, or maybe I shouldn't say 30, but you know, we got over closer to half.
Yeah, people have concerns about it,
They're
especially
like, hey,
in Bitcoin. Yeah,
and of course. So now when you've got, you know, you wanted. To me, I always thought client diversity was great, and that's where when I saw knots coming up, I'm like, it's something else. I mean, it's just a fork of Core for the most part, or was at the time. So it's nice to see other things that can
ground
be built.
up implementations.
Ground up implementations and slowly ramp into it, right? And then we have kind of an equilibrium switch and a shift in order to bring more on board.
So I think that is actually, I think it's a good thing personally. It just makes sense to me. Satoshi did famously say that he doesn't believe there should be multiple clients. But I'm of the belief that we don't have to listen to what he said. Like he left. Right?
Yeah, where are you? Show up.
He went out for a pack of smokes and never came back. So, you know, there's risk, right? Because it's a consensus protocol and everyone has to be lockstep, there are risks with multiple clients that you're going to get unintentional chain splits, which almost certainly will happen. Like, I don't know if it's happened in Ethereum. It probably has. I don't know. But again, it's this is the fifth time I've said this, it's an anachronistic system, right? Like if other people want to write other nodes and other people want to run them, and if it fucks up the network, well, it fucked up the network. Like, what are you going to do? Call like the Better Business
support?
Bureau? Like, what are you going to do? I don't.
So who's helping run or steward this libBitcoin?
That's a guy named Eric Voskuil.
Okay.
And he also wrote a really good book called Crypto Economics. And he has been obsessed with this for years, optimizing this. And the time is right. The time is to, you know. And actually, a couple weeks ago, I was at a meeting where it was representatives from various Bitcoin clients, and they were kind of having this discussion of like, there's been a long-term project in Bitcoin Core called the Bitcoin kernel, and the idea is to separate out the consensus rules, and then if anyone wants to make an alternative client, they can just use those consensus rules, but just change everything else, and that's viewed as like a safer way to do this, right? But as you can imagine, like Bitcoin Core has really no incentive to do this. It's like helping the competition. So even internally, there's dissent there where it's like, how much time should we spend on this? Or like, what way should we do it? Like which programming language we should support. But at least beginning, I think that this meeting was the beginning of the dialogue between the alternative clients. Like the BTCD people were there, the libBitcoin people were there, the Core people were there, or some, you know, not all these people. And just sort of introduce that to them to be like, sit down and be like, hey guys, like we're here, we're coming, and we'll do our best to be compatible and we'll do our best to not impact the network negatively, right? But we all have to work together, right? And so I really hope over the next year or two that does happen. And that can be a positive thing that came out of all this.
Yeah.
The other positive thing, I think a lot of education has happened. I do think a lot of people have realized that they had some misconceptions. So I see that as a positive thing to come out of this too.
Yeah, education-wise, and there's also just like very, I don't want to call it serendipitous around timing of everything, but also having the cold card attack happening at the same time.
Yeah,
I
that
don't want to
was
get too deep
nasty.
into that, but basically, if anybody has a cold card, even if you have like the newer one, the Q or the MK4, because they were saying it's like 70 bits of entropy, not gonna make it. 40 bits, like those ones are all cooked, I think. I think every address has been found or has been drained.
I mean, there's some subtlety there. Like if you rolled your own dice.
But that's different.
Yeah.
That's a different thing because like if you were just relying on their entropy from like I think all of those are wiped out now. Those have all been taken or swept. Because even I was hearing some or watching some other people say they were loading up those addresses just to see
Like honeypots, yeah.
just putting honey and just seeing those sats move real quick. So I think everything is pretty cooked. on that side, which is a real shame because Cold Card was kind of like pushed as the, Bitcoiner, real standard as, hey, if you wanted to be solid. So
I think it's a huge wake up call, right? I mean, it's like, I think a lot of people are shell shocked, like legitimately like trauma, right? And not just people who lost money, but like people who recommended it to other people. It was basically the worst thing, almost the worst thing that could happen in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It's like you thought your money was safe. You had it locked in your safety deposit box. There were people who had to fly home early from vacations. Yeah. That conference that I was at, someone disappeared on the last day, and he was like, I had to help everyone I know. So it was traumatic. I had someone call me. It disturbed me, right? Like, fortunately, this person didn't lose their money. But just like knowing who this person is and like their level of technical knowledge, the fact that they had like a significant amount of their net worth on this thing just like kind of made me sick. That I couldn't believe that they were given such terrible advice. And obviously, like, again, this is an anarchistic system. Like, everyone's on their own, right? And I think a lot of these people were given really bad information. And it's unacceptable, right? Like, the code was unacceptable. The fact that people promoted this product, well, and they're like, have no idea what they're talking about. It's like, you have like Consumer Reports or like Moto Trend, right? You read those magazines because those people are like experts. But you have podcasters and Twitter personalities who like literally have I'm not trying to sound elitist here, but no tech background. They haven't put the work in, right? Like, how many cybersecurity books have you read? If the answer is 0, you probably shouldn't be recommending cryptography solutions to people, right? Because I wouldn't recommend cars to people, right?
Yeah,
like,
I hear you.
And there's even bigger of a. It's one thing to be like something that's trivial, but you don't know. And this is also a problem. Like, maybe you meet someone at a meetup and you give them some advice, and they go home and they put $1 million on the damn thing, and it's like, okay, that's not your fault. That's their fault. But like, and that's personally why I'm very careful with advice, because I don't know what people are going to do with it.
And that's like anytime with hardware wallets, like I've always been, a big proponent of Keystone, obviously. That's been something I like because of the amount of work that I can do. And like, again, this doesn't matter which device it is. That's why I was actually interested in the Cold Card Q for a while, because it was, okay, this can be air gapped. It's using, we're scanning QR codes. There is the ability for NFC attachment with it. There was, it made a lot of sense. But I ended up at a blocker when I was trying to, because it needed base 10 instead of base 6 or something in order to line up. But regardless, but what I'm getting at though is with any of these systems, it's like you still need to verify, and I've always been pushed, and people have been kicking me and yelling at me for talking about dice rolling forever. It's not it's not a consumer thing. You don't just, hey, retail, guess what? You gotta buy this device and now you gotta roll some dice. Like, that's not gonna work. Like, it doesn't work. That's not a cool way to do it. It's not sexy. It's not the way you onboard humanity. You're not doing that. So anyways, with any of this stuff, it's always about like having people understand what they're getting themselves into. And for the most part, most people probably don't even want to get into it. But
I would argue that we had the wrong rituals. You don't have culture if you don't have rituals. And we had rituals that were not cryptographically secure.
yeah,
So the people that don't like the word crypto, they're way off base. The entire culture needs to have crypto built in. Live cryptographically.
There it is. Live cryptographically. I like that.
And dice rolling in a Faraday cage with a tinfoil hat is part of that. Whether you like it or not, I don't care if it's sexy.
Yeah.
All right.
Taking a hard line there that like, all right, like, oh, I'm in the Bitcoin culture and I listen to like a podcast, but I'm not willing to like secure my bearer asset. Like, get out of here.
Yeah.
But I would also say like ideology and security shouldn't mix, right? It's like part of this was, people said don't use a hardware wallet if it also supports Ethereum, because because complexity is the enemy of security. But then, like, you're just listing off all the features of the coin card. That was the joke of the thing. It had all these, like, it does this, it does that.
Because I was talking about the queue in itself.
I know, but
I
you
guess
get-
it had similar.
They was the hardware wallet that had the most features, right? But they forgot to actually have the thing audited. Like, as far as I know, there was no audit. Like, this is how bad.
And that would be like a sort of a ritual when you tell people to do your own research. When you tell people to do your own research, you'd be like, all right, am I checking for audit? Am I checking for, how is the randomness generated?
Yeah.
Is it open source? Is it not?
Is there like a standards
chips
body?
from?
Like,
Yeah.
you wouldn't buy a lamp that wasn't Underwriters Lab certified,
Yeah.
right? Like, we don't even think about
Or
it because
wasn't a standard. Yeah,
the
yeah.
store wouldn't even sell it to you because we have these things like liability and like negligent. Where in the Bitcoin world, it's just, I mean, I just can't imagine being like a podcaster and telling people to use a hardware wallet that had never been audited. But these people don't even know to ask for an audit
Yeah,
because they don't have the background in cybersecurity.
But we're very far away from the
Credentials.
hobbyists,
And that's-
the hobbyists and the cypherpunks,
Yeah.
where this
Exactly.
I mean, it did happen to some of them, but it's less likely. And so, like, it's weird that the culture mutated to like it became very accessible and very popular, and then it lost all of the things that kept it secure and
Like telling the truth?
and prepared you to self-custody.
All right, we're getting close to the top of the hour here. Did want to open it up to any questions, comments, concerns, other things. Anything? Anybody? Here.
I believe that there were a number
Hold the
of
mic right up there.
security experts that did audit the code.
I don't think so.
I'll find them for you and give you the names.
I mean, who's saying that? Cold Card?
Well, they posted on X with their credentials that they checked the source code. I don't think this was an easy bug to find. I think it took Kimmy K3 to actually find it. I think people had actually used OpenAI and other things and hadn't found it.
Yeah, but I mean, the commit that introduced the code was 1,500 lines in one commit, and the commit message was runs, right? Like, that's exactly, it's like, that's just not how you develop secure software. That's just violating every single software engineering principle of how you design secure software. So if anyone audited it and they didn't look like, I mean, it was just crap.
Does the auditor in the room know anything
It was just
about
crap.
Yes. Okay. All good. Take the mic.
Is mainly that it was created so long ago, and I think there needs to be practice in terms of maybe like get like an audit annually, because like things have evolved so fast now, with AI especially.
Exactly.
There's
They
a
should
lot
have
of
been redoubling
vulnerabilities.
their efforts.
Yeah, and I felt like maybe something that was created so long ago, like no one now has some sort of responsibility. There's also like no security committee, like like standards that you can kind of refer to now in the industry. So I just felt like that's probably the main issue. And that's not to, I mean, similarly, right, with like Ledger, for example, Trezor, now being used by so many normies now, as crypto has become so huge already, right? And I think with these companies, they also have to keep checking. Is this the latest? Is this is this now still very resistant, or is not? I think that's something I think that has to be done. Very regularly still, essentially. So yeah, that was a thought.
That's a great point, because the old things you forget about that you think, oh, that was all battened down, it's battle proof, it's all good to go, and things change quick.
It's almost like everyone assumed someone else was checking.
Yeah.
That's like everyone just assumed, surely if all these Bitcoiners that are very knowledgeable are recommending it, surely it's good. And no one actually checked. Everyone trusted and didn't verify. And there was also a problem with I know. It's just, the free rider problem. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was also problems with the leadership in the sense that he was a dick. And when I was at that Bitcoin summit or whatever last week, one of the developers there said him and another guy used to do security, like they used to audit it or like, you know, look for bugs, but they stopped because of the actions of the leader. So they, like, someone specifically said to me face to face, he said, me and person X used to look for vulnerabilities, but we stopped because he's a dick.
Oof. So don't be a dick.
It's
Don't
just,
be a
it was
dick.
arrogance. It was just arrogance.
Yeah. Too bad. Okay.
Anyway.
Well, I think this is a
That
great
was
place.
a great one.
Yeah, it was really good. Really great. Yeah, thanks. Thanks. Hey, thanks. Yeah, woo! All right. So we'll try and do this again in a month. I should be back from my journeys. But I think this would be, at this point, we're going to have the next fork coming out.
eCash.
eCash.
It's actually been delayed until Halloween.
Because it's like, it's kind of forked and then not forked. Or it does
It's just delayed.
it's delayed. I thought there was like a test net or something.
Yeah, there's going to be like testnet, blah, blah, blah. But
Right.
real, like, it was supposed to launch next month.
And now it's okay. You don't have to like do anything with your coins right now.
No.
Don't have to, if you have them on
No.
exchanges, if you're those types of people. you know.
Halloween.
Halloween, get your coins off the exchanges if that's where you keep them, which you shouldn't be. Or if you have them wrapped on some other protocol. Yeah, get. Well, that's the thing, is if you've got UBTC, you need to jeet out to main chain. So you get your eCash airdrop and then you can go back.
I don't think it's...
Well, unless I don't think, you know, like who's going to support this? Are you going to have all these custodians support it? Is Coinbase, if they've got, you know, CBBTC, are they going to give you what they want?
I don't think it's expected to have much value. Like
they
maybe
seem
like...
to think it's going to be worth.
Well,
you know,
even if it's worth like $300, right? That's like 70,000 to $300 ratio.
yeah. But
So,
if
I mean,
you-
I guess if you have 10 Bitcoin, it might be worth it. But, you know,
hey,
for most people, it's probably not that.
hey,
Lucrative.
you know,
Lucrative.
whatever people are thinking. But yeah, if it's $300 a coin, great. Maybe it's only going to be $30 a coin. But anyway, it depends on. Remember, keep your, you know, if you're going to withdraw it, if you have to get it to main chain, take into account like your costs of getting it to main chain and back to wherever it needs to be. So, anyways, we're going to talk about that maybe next time, and there's going to be other things for us to get into and discuss. I'm sure there'll be another catastrophe between now and then. So, looking forward to it. All right. Okay. Thanks.